I'm Erica Wexler, creator of the Transformational Guidance for Organizational Growth. My team and I receive a lot of questions from individual contributors, experienced supervisors, new managers, and executive leaders asking how to make performance reviews more effective and more comfortable. During this training boost, you will gain tips and strategies to make this year's performance appraisal process more than a one-time, ineffective, discomfortable, I just got to get this done checklist. This is a great time to grab a piece of paper and a writing instrument so that you can capture the strategies which apply to your specific situation and upcoming conversations. The biggest change needed to ensure the performance appraisal process is a beneficial use of time and effort is a change in mindset. Instead of reviewing past performance, view appraisals as an opportunity to accelerate performance. The focus of the conversation then changes from what did you do or what did I do to how are you contributing? Focusing on contributions requires a shift from a feedback approach to a feed-forward approach. What is the difference and why does this distinction matter? Far too often, goals are written for the sole purpose of satisfying the process requirement. Sometimes the same goals are used year after year, tossed into the system, and then completely forgotten about until you come back and do the task again a year later. The rating, therefore, frequently reflects whatever happened most recently without being informed by earlier relevant examples from throughout the year. Growth-oriented conversations are different because they occur throughout the year. This enables you to use the annual process to very quickly review examples of performance previously discussed and tracked. Discussion can then focus on progress underway, with most of the time spent strategically creating goals to accomplish over the next year. Measurable goals that align with core competencies and the person's career path. Giving and receiving feedback is wildly important. Why? Because people deserve to know where they stand in a timely manner. Ongoing feed-forward conversations empower people to keep doing what is working or to change direction as needed. There is an important caveat. Workplace success is often based upon the perception of someone's competence. That perception is influenced by multiple aspects: how much experience someone brings to the role, their knowledge, skills, behavior, communication preferences, whether they are meeting individual, team, unit, department, or company goals. This in turn influences the perception of the quality of their performance in different core competencies. Performance conversations, ongoing, are an excellent opportunity throughout the year to identify where perceptions are aligned and misaligned so that you can close gaps in expectations. They are also fantastic opportunities to generate innovative stretch goals for high contributors and with exceptional performers. Two-way performance review conversations are beneficial for both people and provide a ton of insight. The person receiving the feedback understands what their manager or supervisor had been expecting or will be expecting, their perception of competence, their preferences and work styles, and their priorities. Those conversations also provide managers and supervisors with necessary insight into their colleagues, to their direct reports, preferences, expectations, their understanding of priorities, and the assumptions the person receiving feedback may be holding. Of the person who is giving feedback, of the person who is receiving feedback, perceptions, preferences, expectations, and priorities. Two-way conversation. let's take a starting point with your experience before going into the conversations. Self-reflection snapshot. In general, what is your comfort level today? Take note of your starting point objectively. Is it harder for you to give someone feedback knowing that you want to be the person who doesn't make someone else feel some kind of way on the other end of it that's not a good kind of way? Is it harder for you to receive feedback? Is it uncomfortable for you to hear praise or to receive feedback about something another person believes is not working as well as you think it is? Maybe both sides of the conversation are very uncomfortable for you. You would like to avoid performance conversations entirely and never have to talk about what's going well or what needs to change. Or maybe you are equally comfortable giving and receiving feedback. That is the goal for everyone. How are we going to get there? We'll get into that. It may be necessary for you to take a different approach to the conversation with different people. Consider the supervisor with whom you're about to speak, or as a manager, consider each person on your team. Which conversations do you anticipate will be easy and potentially enjoyable? Which conversations do you anticipate will be difficult or uncomfortable, and you need some strategies to approach the conversation differently? Before going into and holding the conversation, consider your relationship with the other person. There are 3 primary categories into which your conversation may fit. We are going to spend some time on this slide. As I describe each of the 3 categories, consider which category most accurately describes your comfort level going into each conversation. For managers and supervisors who have teams of multiple people, objectively consider which people fall within category A, which are in B, and which, if any, fall within category C. Category A. These are the conversations that feel easy. You are very comfortable going into the meeting. Doesn't mean that everything is going well or that all expectations are being met in every single competency area. However, in general, there is alignment in how each of you rated performance in each competency. There aren't any anticipated surprises in the conversation. Your relationship is secure, and you understand each other's communication style. You can go into these conversations confidently, knowing that most of the time can focus on how to continue progress and accelerate growth over the next year. Take a moment to reflect. Who falls into this category? Category B. In this category, there may be 1 or 2 competencies, possibly 3, in which the ratings differ. But overall, there's alignment in ratings, how the person rated themselves and how the manager rated them. The person is giving the performance appraisal and the person receiving the appraisal are both non-defensive and willing to listen. There may be 1 or 2 areas where discussion about growth and improvement is needed, but overall, it's a comfortable conversation. You may consider this conversation to fall within category B versus A because you anticipate communicating 1 or more surprises. For example, perhaps the person has moved into a new role or has different responsibilities, and they are performing as a core contributor versus a high contributor within that expanded role, meeting expectations. Or maybe there is a specific competency area in which performance had previously met expectations, but recently their performance in that area took a dip, and the examples of their drop in performance are significant enough to impact their rating in a specific competency area. Or maybe the person you're about to speak with has confidence issues. And as a manager, you want to thoughtfully approach the conversation gracefully so that they leave feeling as supported as possible. Take a moment. Who falls into category B? Category C. Consider whether there are any specific conversations that you anticipate feel especially challenging. It may be uncomfortable for 1 or both of you, and this may be someone for whom there will be some surprises. the way they rated themselves in certain core competencies or their ratings across all competencies are very different from your ratings. As a manager, maybe you scored someone way higher in a competency than they scored themselves. Or perhaps you anticipate the opposite scenario. Someone has unrealistically rated themselves as an exceptional achiever in all competency categories, and you need to move them closer to alignment by using your examples of their performance as a high or core contributor in most or all competencies. Perhaps this is someone who's not going to agree, or perhaps they are someone who continually approaches any performance-related conversation by negotiating, justifying behavior, making excuses, or deflecting personal responsibility. And you know you need to strategically frame the conversation to keep it focused on growth versus complaints. Take a moment to reflect. Is there anyone who falls into this category? Most likely, most people will fall into that middle bucket with a few people in A and maybe one or two people who are in that potentially challenging category. The goal, by implementing a feed-forward performance acceleration approach, is for next year's conversations to all fall mostly in A with a few in B, with those discomfortable conversations in category C being eliminated entirely. It's possible. As I review strategies throughout the remainder of this training, consider which will work for everyone on your team and which strategies will help you frame the conversation with specific individuals. For every conversation, your starting point is the end. Reverse engineer the conversation. As a manager, thoughtfully consider each of these questions. Thoughtfully consider which SMART goals will help to accelerate performance tied to specific competencies. As an employee, flip the perspective. What does he, she, or they expect? How will she, he, or they determine? And how will each of you evaluate progress throughout the year accurately and objectively so that there are no surprises during next year's formal appraisal process? Consider, is this a change that needs to happen, or is it my preference, expectation, or value? Something that can be let go of, or something that really does need to shift? And the second question about how is it going to benefit the company, the team, the person? When people understand how their role contributes to the unit or the company's priorities, motivation to perform well consistently elevates. As you approach a two-way conversation, set the intention to speak with the other person rather than talking to them. And if the only person speaking during a 30-minute performance review meeting is the manager, this is a one-way talking at meeting. It's not going to lead to change, and nobody likes to be talked at. Set the intention to speak with them and choose your meeting length and location accordingly. Will 30 minutes suffice? Does a follow-up conversation need to happen? Is there anything that needs to be considered before the conversation happened? Where does the conversation need to happen? Is it a sticky conversation that needs to be in person, if feasible? Can it be done virtually, ideally with the camera on? These considerations are especially important for conversations to be held with struggling colleagues. Be thoughtful, be intentional. For every two-way performance review conversation, emotional intelligence is key. Stay centered, stay grounded before, during, and after the conversation. Make sure that you have closed doors, tune out distractions, and take 10 seconds to get yourself organized before entering the meeting. Put your feet on the floor, shoulders back, check your rate of speed. Go more slowly. Which words do you need to emphasize? And pause. Allow think time, especially when you're communicating something that was unexpected, something in which you are expecting a response from the other person, and hold space for the conversation to happen. Align your body language, your tone, and how quickly you're speaking to the intention of the meeting. And hold the conversations with the intention of being kind and firm if there are areas where discussion is needed about changes that are necessary. Be very explicit in these conversations. Are you communicating a suggestion about what they could do? For example, maybe they could choose to be a high contributor or a specific initiative where they want to be an exceptional performer. Or are you setting an expectation about what they must do in order to be able to meet expectations as a core contributor? Be explicit in a way that is kind and firm. Don't hedge. Be kind, be firm, be explicit. Whatever the starting point is, whether you are speaking with someone whose performance has been consistently meeting or exceeding expectations throughout the year, or someone who is making an effort to shift, or someone who you know needs to shift and you're supporting them in doing so, express appreciation for what went well. Start with their strengths. Take a few minutes before each of your conversations to list out 2 or 3 strengths, something you appreciate, respect, or admire about the person you're going into the conversation with. Start with a polish, and then start to go in with areas of rating alignment before you start going into the areas that need to be shifted. Praise, then polish. Take the mindset that everyone has the potential for growth. Now, realistically, that does not mean that everybody's going to lean into the opportunities, but we know that coming into it, everyone has the potential for growth, and it is our responsibility to provide the clarity, the feedback, the goals, and the opportunity to achieve it and to grow, whether it's growing within their role and their position or growing within their career path, if that is the direction that they are most interested in taking. The next 5 slides provide you with a lot of different resources for how to approach conversations with individual people differently. Some of these questions you're going to be able to use with everybody. Some of these questions you may put aside for a future time or a future time of the year where you're having a different conversation. For some of these, you're going to need them with individual people. The first set of questions, and I encourage you to come back and look at these later, is to consider how you are going to align expectations to each of the core competencies: accountability, collaboration, client focus, work quality, learning agility. One tip is to choose one of those core competencies for focused discussion and prioritize goal alignment. Decide whether you need to build up the person's experience, their knowledge, their skills, behavior, what specifically about performance needs to get elevated, and tie it to the goals. Collect monthly and quarterly examples throughout the year. Consider which of these need to be discussed differently with individual team members, or potentially which goals can be set for your entire team and unit. Second resource, consider asking the other person in a 2-way conversation, what ideas do you have about how you can grow in this area? As the individual contributor, ask your manager for their ideas, but come with your own first. And as a manager, ask the people who you're leading their ideas, possible trainings or experiences or roles or knowledge they'd like to elevate performance in a specific competency. Resource 3. Here's a set of questions to build forward-looking growth goals. Take a look at these. It gives you an idea about what's important to people and thinking about what they want to be known for. How do you tie it to career goals? And in that last bucket, are there any areas in which you would like to be performing above expectations? Where would you most like to be performing at? We want to make sure we're performing at expectations in all of the competencies, but are there any areas where you'd like to be performing above expectations? Okay. If yes, let's set a goal to get you there. If not, core contributors are a great way to be and exactly what you need everyone to doing. Next resource, questions to remove obstacles to performance and growth. If there are specific challenges, a dip that somebody is encountering in one or more competency area, give them an opportunity to come to the conversation by preparing their ideas first, their ideas to overcome the challenges, their ideas to do things differently, find out what the hurdles are that they're experiencing that you may be able to help remove so that you can have a different conversation a year from now. Take a moment to reflect upon these questions, which ones will benefit you for your upcoming conversations and with which people. Fifth resource, accountability questions to align support and expectations. Going into the conversation, how can others best support me as an individual, employee, as a manager, as an executive leader? What do you need? How can you best support yourself? And then go a bit deeper. Questions. What really will help you maximize your performance in each of the competencies? What kind of support do you need from the manager, from the supervisor? What do you need from me as a manager, as an executive leader to be successful? And to be really interested to find out from people what they already go to someone else for, so they're not fully dependent upon just you for support. Consider which of these accountability questions you can adopt and apply to specific people and specific conversations this year, and which ones you may want to build into upcoming one-on-one conversations throughout the year. I've shared a lot of information with you today. I'm going to provide you with a summary of a model of how to hold these ongoing conversations so that you lend yourself to next year with no surprises. Here's a sample two-way conversation flow. Begin with their strengths, ask questions, invite questions, continually be listening for areas of alignment and misalignment to bridge that gap. Communicate constructive feedback clearly, be kind and firm, ask more questions, gain their ideas before sharing yours, listen for where there's alignment, close the gap where there's not. Continually clarify expectations about success criteria. Be explicit about whether it's a suggestion for something they may be able to do or an expectation about what needs to be done. Communicate your confidence in their abilities and communicate your confidence in yours. And then get back to the strengths again. If you take away nothing else from this training boost, it's that this must be an ongoing conversation. This is not a one and done, end of the year checklist. Build these questions, build discussions around performance into your biweekly or monthly one-on-ones, build them into your team meetings. Take a look at the 6-month mark. Where are the goals? Are they still the goals? Have the goals been accomplished? Do we need different stretch goals? Is there still an area? Is there a different performance area that needs to be looked at for the second half of the year? Do it again at the end of Q3. What were the examples? What's been done the first couple of quarters? What's been done going into Q4? Going into it before things get really busy toward the end of Q4. And then that way, going into next year's performance acceleration conversation, quick about the reflection, what's already been done, with the majority of the time focused on what you're then going to do the next year to elevate performance toward growth and career pathways. I have shared a lot of information and a lot of resources with you in a very short amount of time. I encourage you to take time, not just today, but to revisit this recording, the handouts, and the supplemental resources as you prepare for this year's conversations, and to revisit them again throughout the year. And with each conversation, aim for excellence. Thank you.